Hi everyone, I'm your host Kirsty and welcome to this audiobook podcast where each week I read you a chapter from my memoir, Gotta Glitter. This week we are reading chapter 12. The chapter title is I'll Kill Her. And this comes from a Soko song by the same name. You may remember this sweet little French girl. She popped onto the scene in 2007 when she released this track. I was actually lucky enough to see her, a million years ago when I was 18 and young and fresh-faced and life hadn't kicked me on my ass too much just yet. I went to a music festival, my first ever music festival actually, and she was playing in a small little tent at Lawn Falls Festival. So that was pretty cool. Couldn't hear a single thing she was singing. It took us about halfway through this song, which was, ripping up the airwaves to even know it was this song at the time, which was a shame because I don't know that anyone else knew any of her other songs. So to get like a giant roar halfway through the track, probably not ideal. Look, sound system's fault, not hers. But we had a great time partying it up nonetheless. So to get you into the feel of this chapter, here is a little bit of Soko's I'll Kill Her.
So of course, you are supposed to call me tonight. You are supposed to call me tonight. We would have gone to the cinema, and after to the restaurant, the one you like in your street. We would have slept together, have a nice breakfast together, and then a walk in a park together. How beautiful is that? You would have said I love you in the cutest place on earth, where some little eyes are dancing with the fairies. I would have waited like a week or two, but you never tried to reach me. No, you never called me back. You were dating that bitch blonde girl. If I find her, I swear I'll kill her. I'll kill her. She stole my future, she broke my dream. I'll kill her. I'll kill her. She stole my future when she took you away.
Chapter 12, I'll Kill Her. Soundtrack, Soko, I'll Kill Her. By December 2015, Simon and I had lived through a tumultuous year of breaking up, taking breaks, and getting back together. He never officially dumped me. I was just systematically uninvited to family events. Christmas at his dad's house was the first to go. Then the upcoming weddings of siblings I had spent the best part of my 20s getting to know. These weren't high and by level of relationship either. These people were my family, and suddenly they were gone. No, they were fine. I was gone. I couldn't even tell you when our relationship was over, because I feel as though I was the last to know. Having given up our flat, I moved back into my childhood home. Mum was spending half the year in Toronto to be with her Centurion mother, and Dad was still working in the UAE. I was back in the tiny bedroom I chose at 4 years of age because it had pink, musty wallpaper on the walls. My brother had lived right across the hall from me my whole adolescence. I would listen to him chuckle to himself as he watched TV before bed each night. I loved that sound. Being in this large house on an acre block in the suburbs now felt so quiet. I never heard myself laugh. I would binge watch hours of New Girl, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which was rudely relatable, in the hope that I could emulate my brother's laughter to South Park or The Simpsons. Instead, I just stared blankly into the screen, willing it to suck me into another world. Sometimes I would catch the sadness on my face in the reflection of my laptop and just cry. The house that was so full of life, love, and people throughout my adolescence was now an old, empty building disintegrating around me. The only thing with a heartbeat in there anymore was me, and it was taunting. The constant thumping in my chest was a reminder of how I had destroyed the only thing that truly mattered to me: love. By January 2016, I was still under the illusion that I was in a relationship. A fractured relationship, sure, but my fractured relationship. Simon and I drove over 2 hours to a remote country town outside Melbourne to mend the gaping wound between us. We sought couples counselling from a kind-hearted hippie woman, Susan, who I'd met at the cancer retreat. Both Sam and I had seen her for counselling, meditation, or miscellaneous healing sessions over the subsequent years and felt a strong affinity with her. Even Simon, who was reluctant to open up to anyone, felt comfortable confiding in her about his mother's death. Perhaps it was because she shared his mother's name and was similarly patient and warm-hearted. I was hopeful the woman who called herself a healer could revive our very sick relationship. I spent all morning primping and preening, knowing I had the opportunity to spend several hours alone in a car with Simon. I ensured I was primed in that effortlessly beautiful way that actually takes hours of preparation. I hoped that all the reasons he no longer loved me could be swept away with a good hair day and a fresh Kylie Jenner lip kit. He said nothing. I felt pathetic. We didn't speak for the entire drive, and I came to understand how silence can be truly deafening. Within the quiet of that car were all the answers we weren't yet ready to admit to ourselves or each other. He couldn't tell me it was over, and I wouldn't have been receptive had he tried. I was desperate for his love to the point of humiliation. This would become obvious over the course of the next few hours as Sue dug deep into our relationship. My infidelity, his lack of emotional expression, my toxic lashing out, his neglect, my clawing need for attention, his neutrality toward me, my rage at him not loving me, his guilt about it. At one point, Simon revealed that the reason he didn't talk to me anymore was that I would get too upset. I was upset. Almost 7 years of our lives together, gone. It was upsetting. Why wasn't he upset? He had mastered the art of suppressing his pain to the point where anyone else's was uncomfortable and unwelcome. We were two ends of the emotional spectrum. He sat next to me like a stone while I vibrated with rage, jealousy, and fear, ready to boil over at any moment. I wanted to shake a reaction out of him, pry a single tear from his starkly dry face. Even if I had to peel his eyelids open and take it for myself. Feel something. The three of us sat in Sue's sunroom, looking out onto a dry paddock with one solitary grazing horse. I wondered if the horse got lonely out there, but pushed the thought aside realizing I didn't have any room left to carry his sadness too. It was summer, so the sun slanted in through the large glass window, highlighting my own darkness. Sue had prepared chamomile tea to calm our nerves. Simon thought this was wonderful. I thought it was fucking pointless. I was already dosed up on lethal amounts of oxy, and that barely touched the sides anymore. I hugged the warm mug in my shaky hands and smelled the earthy, sweet chamomile. Ugh, who likes this shit? I gulped it down anyway, desperate for its herbal magic. After listening to us debate the quality of our relationship for 2.5 hours, she said the words that made me despise her. Your relationship is toxic. You need to grow apart. Fuck you, I thought. Perhaps you will come together again in the future, 5 years or so down the track, when you are different people. But right now, this is causing too much damage. I hate you, I said internally. I began to sob. Why did she put a time frame on it? I witnessed the wave of relief course through Simon as I felt my entire body get hot and prickly. I wanted to rip my skin off like a scratchy woolen jumper, but instead, I sobbed uncontrollably, unable to catch my breath. I knew how my desperate brain would interpret her words. Now that she had voiced this arbitrary number, I would obsessively hold on to that with hope, prolonging my own suffering for the next 5 years. What have you done, you stupid hippie bitch? There, gazing out at Sue's picturesque view, I had a panic attack. I was sobbing, hyperventilating, and gulping for air. My chest hurt. It was as though my soul was trying to rip free of my body. I could feel the heartbreak. She turned to Simon and said in a patronizingly calm tone, "Is this what you mean?" He nodded solemnly. That's when I realized that for them, I was the problem. It wasn't us that was toxic. It was me. Simon, the long-suffering partner who had borne the burden of me for far too long. They both knew it. They were just waiting for me to catch up. I thought back to myself as an 8-year-old, to a time when I confided in my teacher that my 2 best friends were bullying me. The 3 of us were called into the teacher's office to discuss what had been going on. As I tried to explain how the girls had been teasing and excluding me, my voice shook and I began to cry. I was annoyed at myself for showing weakness, knowing it would only fuel the fire. I reached for a tissue and it ripped as I pulled it out of the box. I tried again and the same thing happened. Cheap-ass one-ply tissues. The girls began to laugh openly at my struggle. I looked to the teacher for support but caught him smirking along with the girls. "Is this the kind of bullying you mean?" he remarked, trivializing my genuine concerns. "No, sir, I'm not upset about a fucking tissue. I'm upset that my friends are laughing at and adding to my distress. I'm upset that you, as my teacher and protector, don't seem to understand that, and I'm frustrated because when I have been strong enough to fight for myself and stand my ground, I am told I am too sensitive and can't take a joke." but I was 8 years old. So I just looked at my feet in shame. At 27, things weren't much better. Once again, I was left to feel as though my emotions were extreme and invalid. My school friends, my teacher, Simon and Sue were right. I was wrong. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I do feel too much. How would I know? Or maybe my heart was breaking in so many directions that I didn't know what to do. Having met with Sue a handful of times, this would be our final session. It was clear to all, except my denial, that it was over. I had been hopelessly invested in our therapy. I scribbled in my notebook each session, studying our love like it meant something, like I could learn all the right answers and put us back together. Simon was less enthusiastic about the future of our relationship, and the coming weeks would show me why. He was already in another one. Just like his dismal attempt to support me in Sam's final days, these sessions were not an indication that he was standing by me. These were attempts to placate and pacify me while he moved on with someone else. Elizabeth. Say it with me. Elizabeth. Lizzie. Liza. Beth. Betty. Bitch-ass, slut-ass whore. Ugh. Who cares what she goes by? She's not me. She's blonde because, of course she is. Straight hair too. You'd never have to worry about getting tangled in her mess of curls. Light, creamy skin. No blotches of fake tan around her wrists or adult acne around her chin. I wonder, is she younger than me? Or older? I'm not sure which is worse. She's thinner, so I guess she wins. She's unlikely to be clinically insane either because she works for a fucking children's charity. Well, good for you, Lizzie. You're a great person and I'm a psycho junkie bitch. We get it. It was at this point of pettiness I realized how deep down the spiral I had fallen. I mentally took a step back from Facebook stalking to think, she looks happy. She looks like a nice, normal Aussie girl who won over my boyfriend with her talent for happiness. And for that, she deserves to die. Mum was my lifeline and would answer the phone at the drop of a hat. I would call her at all hours, hyperventilating down the phone as she tried her best to calm me down at 3 a.m. Canadian time. She reminded me how loved I was and that, despite the distance, I was not alone. Dad and I were still talking weekly. Every Thursday afternoon, he would call me without fail. He, who had fluctuated from driving me insane to inspiring me with his genius, was now the only person showing me that others had felt this level of despair, and that it was possible to survive it. Others would poorly hide their expressions of concern, confirming my suspicions that I had crossed over to unhinged territory. But not Dad. Dad got it. I found out about Simon and his new gal pal from a cheery little Facebook post of the two of them together. I was never able to call her his girlfriend. I was his girlfriend. My brain never quite made the jump. Simon had long since blocked me on account of my regular drunken rage blackouts where I would tag all his photos with descriptive genital terms. However, on this day, a concerned friend thought it would be helpful for me to see how well he was doing without the old ball and chain, and sent through some screenshots of his page. It's better you hear it from me. So, sweetie, hugs, XOXO. Those were the last words I read before I turned into a homicidal maniac. I opened my phone to find a montage of photo booth shots. You know, the ones that were cute back in the 90s when teen rom-coms depicted true love by strategically placing one of those rolls of film on Jennifer Love Hewitt's mirror? There it was, in black and white. Confirmation that he was happier without me. He'd never done a cute photo shoot with me. Maybe she brings out the fun side in him. Does he have a fun side? I'm a goddamn laugh a minute. Why didn't I get fun, Simon? How dare they be happy when I'm crawling out of my skin with grief? I think that's one of the cruelest things about a breakup. Someone will always be happy again first. It had been 2 months since the death of my best friend, and only weeks since her funeral. Yet here he was, flaunting his happiness online. He sat next to me at Sam's funeral, holding my hand. Was he with her then? I have never hated anyone more. I called Mum in Canada at the sight of the new couple's smiling faces. When she answered, I was crying so hysterically that it took several attempts of me screaming, "He has replaced me!" down the phone line before she finally understood what I was trying to say. I couldn't breathe. It was another panic attack. By now, they were happening multiple times a day. Even at uni, I would have to sneak away to the disabled toilets to sob my heart out on the floor, trying not to faint from lack of oxygen. I would hold my hands tightly over my mouth, run the taps and flush the toilet so that no one could hear the sound of my heart breaking. My shaky hands would open an oxy and rack out a line or two, which I would inhale with a sigh of relief. Please help me. I'd beg the thin white lines. Then, after a few minutes, I would stand up, straighten out my crisp white lab coat, and go back to treating patients for their irritable bowel syndrome and psoriasis. I cried so much, I didn't even know where the tears were coming from. I was sure I would dehydrate from a lack of fluid. The breaking of my heart was a physical searing in my chest and convulsive gripping in my gut. I felt like I was dying, like I was terminally ill. But there was no disease to treat or broken bone to mend. Mum stayed on the phone while I used the landline to call my psychiatrist. He organised a bed for me at the psychiatric hospital for the following day. We arranged for my brother to come and stay with me for the night so I wouldn't be alone. My psych sent the CAT team, the Crisis Assessment and Treatment team, to my house to assess how likely I was to kill myself. Answer: very. I wanted my parents. I wanted Simon to tell me it was all a misunderstanding and he was coming back. I wanted Sam to show up on my doorstep with magazines and peanut M&Ms, making it okay. I wanted any part of my life to be recognizable again. When the CAT team arrived, they started asking me questions about my past. They were particularly interested in my history with anorexia. The recovery rates for people with severe eating disorders are so low that the fact I was able to recover displayed a certain level of strength. I didn't feel strong. I felt like a shell of a person. But maybe they were right. Overcoming anorexia had felt like an impossible task, but somehow I'd made it. Could this be the same? I had no idea. But seeing as no one was going to let me kill myself today, I had no option but to believe. They then started to talk to me about where I would be staying. They offered me a room at a public residence and gave me the address, which sounded familiar. I confirmed the location on Google Earth only to have my horrifying suspicions confirmed. In typical disaster movie fashion, the facility was directly in view of Simon's house. I don't mean down the street and around the corner. I'm saying I could see his bedroom window from the ward. What in the actual demonic bullshit is that? What if I'm sitting in bloody art therapy doing some docile finger painting and I turn around to see his new girl pull up outside his house for date night? Am I just supposed to sit here and not commit double homicide? What do you mean? Dear God, hi, it's me. I was just wondering, what is your trauma? Sincerely, Kirsty. To protect myself from a murderous rampage, I decided to forego the free public residence available within my jurisdiction and instead spend all my life savings on a private hospital stay a few suburbs away. Here I was, asking for help, and it was as though the universe itself was laughing at me. How far can we push her before she snaps? I've snapped! Jesus, I concede! I was no longer just being tested. I was being baited. Kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself. The universe whispered maniacally. These words rang on repeat in my head for months on end. Sometimes I'd even whack myself on the head in an attempt to dislodge the words, like someone you'd see lurking around North Richmond Station. But nothing worked. They were here to stay. I want to, I'd reply. Within 24 hours of calling Mum, she was on a plane home from Toronto, and I was setting up in a psych ward, a safe distance from Simon's place. I looked at my small, lonely hospital bed and imagined Simon being held lovingly in his king-sized bed, a warm body next to him, protecting him from feeling this hell. The sense of injustice transformed my despair into an adrenaline-fueled rage. I had lost everything. Every fucking thing. The last 6 months had been a storm of shit so powerful that when asked how I was coping, I would have to pick and choose which tragic events were significant and which the masses could do without. For example, my general reply might include the loss of Sam, followed rapidly by my breakup. These were the big hitters. But a concurrent shitstorm would kick me to my knees every time I attempted to stand. This is what had me convinced I was cursed. Sorry, no, that should be cursed with a C. For instance, my childhood Cocker Spaniel, Yoda, needed to be put down. He was elderly, in pain, and could no longer walk. This is a devastating event on its own. But compared to watching your favourite person deteriorate and die, then getting your ass dumped weeks later, it pales. I sang gently to him as he was given the lethal injection and slipped away from us. To fill the space of Yoda's little footsteps through the house, I'd adopted 2 rescue kittens, Kizu and Mimo. They would sleep snuggled up on either side of my neck and remind me I was loved. They served as a tremendous aid in getting me up in the morning. Even if I did nothing else with my day, I knew that I needed to feed those furry munchkins twice a day without fail. They gave me purpose and a glimpse of joy. These kittens were the only thing keeping me going until Kizu disappeared. I waited, hoping she had just gone out hunting for mice or skinks and would eventually come back. But days passed without a sign of her. 2 weeks later, I would start to smell the very distinct stench of rotting kitty from beneath the house. Later still, a handyman would find her and proudly remark how he had just found the biggest dead rat he'd ever seen. I laughed in horror because I didn't know what else to do. It was like I had acquired the world's worst superpower, and everything I touched turned to dead. It didn't end there. My grief was complex, incessant, and seeped into every aspect of my life. I continued to get angrier and more erratic, unable to separate my pain from my work, studies, and friendships. I couldn't relate to anyone around me anymore. These enthusiastic, active people who cared about things like health, climate change, and social justice. I couldn't care for myself, let alone the whole fucking planet. It seemed elitist and privileged even to be capable of caring. I was angry at them for having free space in their minds and hearts for others over there, when I was drowning in front of them. What about me? Help me! I had been given a coveted position at a yoga studio and was desperate to make a good impression. But I was a wreck. I would drive to work, smoking out the window and sobbing uncontrollably the entire way. I wished I had windscreen wipers on my eyes to help me see the road as I drove. I could no longer listen to music. Sad music broke my heart, and happy music mocked me. It would be 4 whole years before I could listen to music again. When I got to work, I would quickly snort a line and take a few slugs of leftover wine that was still in the fridge from the Christmas party. Then I would chew down some mints, a pathetic attempt at masking the smell of booze and cigarettes, splash some cold water on my face, followed by a little concealer, then practice smiling a few times in the mirror. It's showtime! I don't know if you have ever attempted to stand on one leg while drunk and high, but the fact it took me several months to get fired is a testament to my balancing act. Truthfully, I was relieved to be let go. Can't pour from an empty cup and all that hippie shit. So, as an act of goodwill, I kept that cup full to the brim with a double vodka crayons. In an effort to heal, I organised to see a new psychologist. I was on my way to our initial session, hopeful that someone new might save me. I had just been to a meditation class and was feeling about as centered as possible. To get to the appointment, I had to drive past both Simon's and Sam's streets, which gave me intense anxiety. I tried to breathe through it, holding on to the remnants of calm from the class. Inhale calm, exhale stress. Inhale calm, exhale stress. Inhale. I slammed on the brakes as my wheels screeched violently against the road. The airbags slapped me in the face as the car came to a dead halt. I looked out of my left side window to see that a blue sedan had T-boned my little Suzuki Swift. The poor man's Mini, Sam used to tease. I quickly assessed whether I was dead and realised disappointingly I was not. Why? It didn't make sense to dangle death right in front of my nose like that and not commit. Just do it. When the ambulance and police arrived, I was trapped in my car, screaming at the top of my lungs. It was like I was trying to exorcise a demon that had latched itself onto me and wouldn't let go. I screamed because I was alone in the world. I screamed because I was alive. I screamed because I felt like a goddamn puppet. And I screamed because even my fucking depression kitten died. I just fucking screamed. You know that scene in Ozark where Ruth realizes she has nothing left to lose and ends up screaming at the top of her lungs, "If you want to stop me, you're gonna have to fucking kill me!" I found comfort in that. It made me feel seen. My car was rubble, but I was unharmed. And the ambos kept asking, "Who can we call to come get you?" They asked me over and over as I cried, "No one. I have no one. I have no one." The police wouldn't take me home because I lived outside their district, but they felt sorry enough for me to try and flag down a taxi. After 20 minutes of failed attempts, they asked me to book an Uber. The driver tried to make small talk, but I couldn't hear him. I stared numbly out the window, listening to the blood pulsating between my ears. A week later, when I was able to get to my psych, I asked her in earnest if this life was nothing but a cruel joke, or perhaps I had died and this was hell. I wanted answers. Why had things taken such a dark turn with no sign of relief? I needed to know
if I would be given a chance to heal, or if suffering would just keep coming. She replied, "Unfortunately, there is no finite amount of suffering a person can experience. We like to tell ourselves things like bad things come in threes or everything happens for a reason. But the truth is, life is mostly random. Some people will experience a lot of suffering, and others travel through life without much at all. Within a year, I had lost my relationship, my Sam, my home, my job, my dog, my kitten, my car, my sanity, and to top it off, my album launch, which had a decent turnout, brought no career reward. I had nothing. And when you have nothing left, nothing matters. When you don't value life, you can do anything because the consequences don't bother you. I was hopeless, but I was free. Free to look crazy, to be violent, to take the pain away in any self-destructive way I needed, because what's the worst that can happen? I die? Who gives a flying fuck? If my life was going up in flames, I was taking the world with me. Stage direction. Pulls hoodie overhead and stares down the barrel of the camera, a la Elizabeth Moss at the end of every episode of The Handmaid's Tale.
Thanks for listening. If you want more, check out the show notes and follow the link to my website or Linktree, where you can get your very own copy of the book in eBook or paperback. Join me on Instagram or listen to the Spotify playlist of all the theme songs from the book. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod so it downloads straight to your app each week. And if you like the show, why not share it with your mates? All right, see you guys. Bye.